What do you want? Episode 57. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the Firm Differentiator 10X Effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Profit with Law. I am your host, Moshe Amsel, and welcome back. I have been MIA since December 18th, and it was not planned for me to take that long of a break, but after the Law Firm Growth Summit was over, I was just spent, and I took the time to enjoy the holiday season with my family, with my friends, and I just kind of took it easy and made it stress-free or low stress to just let the podcast sit. I figured my listeners are also busy with their families. Everybody will be okay and things will be fine. So if you missed me, I apologize. It's really it wasn't intentional, but I think that the next time it will be intentional. I think it was really nice to have that little break. So as long as I pre-plan it, I can warn you about it, and then you're not waking up wondering what happened to the show. Where is your new episode? Now, my audio might be a little off today because I'm using the same microphone, but my microphone stand literally just broke right before I started recording. So I'm holding the microphone in my hand, which is not ideal at all, especially if I end up going for a long time on this episode. So if the audio is in and out, you know why. And I apologize for that. Hopefully, the next time I hit the record button, I'll have a new microphone stand holding this thing in place. So, Happy New Year. Welcome to 2020. I heard, 2020, the year of vision, 2020 vision. I really like that one. But there really is nothing special about the beginning of the year other than what we make of it. And New Year's resolutions, we all know, can be a great thing, but at the same time, usually is not something that is stuck to. So I'm not going to harp on that. There's plenty of people who are out there tooting that horn, and I just want to keep it business as usual. I just want to keep moving forward. But there are some really exciting things happening that I want to share with you before I jump into this episode itself. And that is, first of all, we successfully completed the Law Firm Growth Summit. It was an absolute smashing success. 5 days, 31 speaker sessions, just a ton of really, really good value. And we had a super engaged audience. Over 2,400 people registered for the event. And I'm just blown away by the amount of transformations, messages I've been getting from people, the Facebook group, which has been lit up. And by the way, you can still join that. I am keeping the Facebook group open. The Law Firm Growth Summit is going to be a brand that will be sticking around. So the name of the Facebook group is Law Firm Growth Summit. If you search in Facebook, you'll find it. Just put in a request to join. Make sure that you answer the questions when you go to join. So give us your email address. Without it, we won't be letting you in. We want to make sure you're on the wait list for the next event if you were not an attendee for this one. So the Law Firm Growth Summit was really successful, and how do I say this? There's so many different ways that we can take this brand, so many different directions, so many different things we can do, that I'm just at this point where I'm seeing all of this possibility, and I'm just letting it all sink in because I don't know what the right next step is. And I don't think that any of you do either. I think that there's a lot of potential that we have. One of the things I'm thinking about doing is having one annual event for the year and then doing single day mini summits. So have a 1-day summit where we'll just go deep into one topic and make that very affordable for people. The summit itself was free. If we do these 1-day events, I probably would charge on the front end to cover the cost of it instead of the free and then all access pass sale model that we're doing for the main event. But I am committed to trying to keep the main event free to attend. I think that was very important to allow people to get a taste and to see what it's all about. And I'd like to keep it that way. So we're going to be actively working to find sponsors for the next one so that we can cover the cost. This time, we covered a lot of the cost here in-house. In other words, we lost some money on it, and that's okay. It's the first time we ran it. We had a certain amount that we were willing to expose ourselves to, and we did that. And it was a success, so I don't see that as a failure, as a problem. But what I do want to do is make sure that moving forward, this is not a loss leader. It's not something that's costing us money to put on every time, and that we find a way to cover those costs. So that's my homework for the event, and stay tuned as I have more information. We're also playing with the dates, so we ran it this time in December. I think that was a byproduct of just the timing from when I started to determine that I wanted to do this to when we finally got the ball rolling and got the speakers lined up. And then I wanted to have it done before the end of the year. So that was my own doing. But we're going to start thinking about what is the optimal time during the year to do this for you. And we're going to be sending a survey out to our attendees as well, and we're going to ask these kinds of questions to get feedback from them. So hopefully you were an attendee, a registrant for the event. You'll get that survey. Take the time to respond to it because you could be forming the next event with your responses. So I wanted to go today and talk about, what does growth mean to you? I asked this question in the Facebook group, and this is one of those episodes where I'm just going to take it to where it goes. I don't have a specific place that I want to go with this, and I want to start talking about this idea of growth and what it means to you. But before I do that, I just realized there's one more thing I wanted to share, and that is what is happening with this podcast coming into 2020. So we'll get back to the growth question in a moment. There's some exciting things that I'm trying to do. So I really enjoyed the live Q&A sessions that we did during the Law Firm Growth Summit. And what I would like to do is I would like to have an episode that is specifically to get questions answered. So stay tuned for information on that, where we're going to have a place where you can submit questions, and we'll get those questions answered here on the show. What I'd like to do in an ideal world, and I haven't put all the pieces together, is to have a panelist of speakers, not just myself, to be answering those questions for you, kind of like we did for the live Q&A on the summit. Another thing that I am going to be testing, and I already have a couple of people lined up for this. If you're interested, by the way, just shoot me an email and let me know, and we'll see if it makes sense. But I am going to try to do some live coaching here on the podcast. So take somebody who has a very specific issue that they're working through, and just do a free coaching session with them, and then broadcast that session here on the podcast for your own, not so much enjoyment, but for your own benefit. So you can hear the process we go through, you can get ideas from the things that you hear, and hopefully that can help you move forward in your journey. So I'm really looking to add variety to the show, besides for interviews and solo episodes, to bring another format to the show, maybe with some coaching sessions, some Q&A sessions, and see what we can do with that. So I'd love your feedback to know which sessions you're enjoying, which ones which episodes you're liking and benefiting from, so I can bring more of those to you. So let's go to this question of growth. I asked this question in the Facebook group, what does growth mean to you? And I'm going to share some of the responses that we received. And then I'm going to share with you my own thoughts on it. So one person said, to me, growth is growing your book of business and revenue. Another person said more money, more freedom, and more serving my community. Another one said continuous micro improvements over a long duration of time. Another one said revenue, outsourcing, and alignment. Another one for more money, more clients, more freedom. Somebody said enlarging the footprint of my office as well as its place in the market. Another one said increasing the profitability of my firm as well as the revenue. Another one said increasing revenue, increasing profitability of firm, increasing share of market, and envisioning and creating the life that I desire to have. Another said increasing our profit per case, which will increase revenues. Another one said delegating and automating more for more scalable and sustainable growth. Then we've had leverage through networks of on-the-move, action-oriented peeps, solving a nagging problem, scale. And then I chimed in and I said, to me, it is defining a goal, taking consistent action towards that goal. And one common thread that I saw through this post and the responses is that everybody looked at the question and the word growth and relayed that back to their business, back to their firm. And I didn't specifically say law firm growth. I didn't specifically say business growth. Not like I was trying to trick anybody or post a trick question. I didn't actually have a motive when I posted this question. But I found it interesting that people are defining growth by how they perform in their business. And even myself, I did not say business specific, but I said defining a goal, taking consistent action toward that goal. And I think even my response is probably not all inclusive of what it really should be. And if you think about growth, the place where we want to grow the most is in our personal development. Everything that we do in the law firm practice, everything that we do in our day-to-day lives, we're always on a mission to try and strive to become a better person. And if we're not doing that, human beings are not ones to be complacent and stay in the same zone, stay in the same place. So if we're not moving forward, generally we're moving backwards. So if you're not purposely trying to do better, be better, become a better person, the things around you start to decay. And Michael Hyatt in his book Living Forward, together with Daniel Harkavy, they call this drift, when you kind of just let life happen and you just allow yourself to drift, and you end up in a totally wrong destination or in the wrong place or far from where you wanted to be on the path to where you really want to end up. And I mean, we can look at relationships with a spouse. If we're not actively making efforts to make that person feel special, to recognize that person for what they do, to just chip in and not allow them to carry the full weight and burden of responsibilities in the household. If you're not doing those things, and you continue to not do those things over a period of time, that is going to eat away and decay at your relationship. In the office itself, and in your law firm, If you're not actively seeking new clients, eventually the new business is going to dry up. If you're not actively trying to make clients happy, you're not making an effort at good customer service, eventually your clients are going to leave. And this is a very interesting concept where growth is survival. If we're not growing, what are we doing? If we're not moving forward in a positive direction, what direction are we headed? And how far back, how far down can we go before we lose everything? And that's really where I think that we need to look at growth and recognize that this is not about getting from 500,000 to $1 million in revenue. This is not about growing from a 4-person firm to an 8-person firm. This is not about going from a Toyota Camry to a Tesla. Growth is about making forward progress, continuing to make forward progress in our lives so that we are not working in reverse, so that we are not losing traction, so we're not moving backwards. And I don't want this to be morbid. I don't want it to sound like we're, it's a live or die situation, but that's really what it is. And our ability to feel good about ourselves and to be satisfied with our lives is entirely reliant on these positive directions. There's only so long that you can go in the wrong direction before you end up depressed, before you end up miserable. And then that creates a further downward spiral of your situation. So how do we harness this personal development journey? How do we stay on top of it? How do we make sure that we're constantly evolving and growing to become a better person? And what does that look like for each of us? And then how do we then translate that into other areas of our lives, like our business? So I just did a training today on the 5 steps to law firm success in 2020. And in that training, I shared an interesting statistic that I actually need to pull up the PowerPoint for it. So while I'm doing that, I'm going to let that open, and I'm going to jump to the right slide so I can actually get that statistic in front of me. But essentially, the Social Security Administration has a statistic where for every 100 people who join the workforce, they let us know what is going to be with those 100 people 40 years later when they retire, when they leave the workforce. Or when they're supposed to be able to leave the workforce. And this is the statistic, which is basically letting you know what percentage of people, because out of 100, that's your percentage, right? So 1 person would be wealthy. 4 people would be financially secure. 5 people would continue working because they have to. 36 people would be dead. And 54 people would be broke and dependent on friends, family, and government for their survival. Now, when we look at this statistic, which is the reality, right? It's not made up. This is the Social Security Administration. They know exactly what's happening with every single one of us. 1 person would be wealthy. 4 would be financially secure. 5 people out of 100 would actually be comfortable. Everyone else is either dead or broke, right? 5 are working because they have to. 5 are working because they have to. 54 are reliant on other people to survive, and 36 are dead. So 5% of the workforce is going to end up being where they wanted to be. 95% are going to essentially fail to live the life that they want. They're never going to get the opportunity to live the life that they want. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, how do I end up in the 5%? And how do I make sure that I'm not in the 95%? And this goes right back to this question of growth. It goes right back to this idea of, if we're not moving forward, if we're not making forward progress, we're going to move backward. And you know what? There's a lot of factors that go into this. There's Hal Elrod, in his book, The Miracle Morning, has a chapter dedicated to this idea of the 5%, 95%. And in it, he shares some interesting concepts of what the 95% is doing. That if we look at this and we say, okay, this is what they're doing, if I just do differently, if I do the opposite of that, then I can be in the 5%. And one of the things that he points out is that the 95% are, they're justifying their actions. So basically, when they have a moment of weakness, they are chalking that up to a moment of weakness and just saying, I'll do better the next time. And we all do this, if you think about it, when you set a goal or you take on a New Year's resolution, you decide that you're going to do something differently. And you might do it well for 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. And then you have a misstep. And you say, oh, it's okay. I was really good for 5 days. This was an exception. I'll do better tomorrow. And when we do that, we're basically giving ourselves permission to be slackers. We're giving ourselves permission to be lazy. We're giving ourselves permission to back off from what we really want. And that's like the first crack in the foundation of growth. And we do that without even realizing it. And we turn around 2 weeks later, and whatever it is we were trying to achieve, we're not even on the same wavelength anymore. We're no longer going towards that goal. And that happened because we allowed ourselves that moment of weakness. And instead of looking at it and saying, this was a moment of weakness, and I cannot allow this to happen again, it is not okay, and really holding ourselves accountable to do better the next time, that's the difference between, or that's one of the differences between the 95% and the 5%. Another thing that we need to recognize is that as humans, we are wired to be reactive. So we like to let things happen to us and then react to them, as opposed to taking specific action, intentional action, and making things happen for us the way that we want them to. So somebody who is working a 9-to-5 job is going to go to work every day and just continue to punch the clock until something happens to them. They get a promotion, they get fired. Most people are not going to take actions to change that situation, to make the situation better, more aggressively than the system will do for them. Difference between reactionary and survival mode and an action taker, somebody who is growth oriented, somebody who wants better for themselves. Accountability, discipline, these are all factors that go into this as well. So I want to ask you, what do you want? And I think this is a question that we need to ask ourselves more often, and we're not asking ourselves this question enough. What do I want? And if you think about that, you might find that many of us don't know the answer to that question. We don't even know what we want. And if you don't know what you want, how is it possible that you're going to end up in the 5%? How is it possible that if you don't even know what you want, that you're going to get there? If you get in the car and you start driving without any idea of where you want to go, that could be fun to do every once in a while, by the way, you're going to end up somewhere else with no reason to be there. And that's what we're doing in our lives, is we're getting in a car, we're driving with no destination in mind. If you have a destination, have you made it clear that that's your destination? Are you on the shortest path to get there? Did you navigate your route? Or did you get in the car and say, I'm in New York right now, I want to end up in Toronto, and I'm just going to drive and hope that I get there. And then if you end up driving south, it's going to be a really long trip since Toronto is north. So where am I going with this? I don't really know. But I'm pointing out that if you don't know what you want, if you're not clear on what your objective is, it is nearly impossible to hit that objective. And that's why I think that the absolute definition of growth is to actually have a goal, to have a destination, to have a place that you're aiming for, because without that, it is almost impossible to grow. It is almost certain that we're going to simply be treading water and staying in the same place until we get tired and drown. But if we want to keep propelling ourselves forward towards what we want, we first need to define what we want. So that's what I think is the takeaway from this episode, from this rant, because basically I said I know that I want to go in this general direction, but I don't know where I want it to take me. So I just turned the mic on and started talking. But I think that if you can answer the question, what do I want? That is going to be the starting point of clarity for you. That's going to be the starting point of figuring out what it is that you need to do today, tomorrow, the next day, over the course of the next year, 2 years, 5 years, to get to your destination, to get to where you want. And what's going to happen is that when you identify what you want, it's going to scare you, potentially, but it's also going to enlighten you and open doors for you. Now, the reason why I say it could potentially scare you is because what you really want might not be in harmony with what you're doing today. So, for example, you might have become a lawyer because your parents wanted you to. Or you might have gotten married because society told you to do that. Or you might have decided to live where you live because that was convenient at the time. Your current circumstances are probably in some way, shape, or form dictated by the reactionary and survival mode version of you, and not by the version of you that really thought about, what is it that I want? And I'm sure that you've asked yourself this question in the past, and I'm sure that at some point you had an answer. And guess what? Even that can change. What we wanted when we were 15 is different than what we want when we're 35. What we want when we're 35 is different than what we want when we're 55. I'm not 55 yet. I don't know. But I imagine that that desire changes. That vision, the outlook changes. What is important to us changes. And I think that that's also important to recognize, is what I want today is a different question than what I wanted yesterday or 5 years ago. So I need to ask myself that question again. And I need to see, am I living in alignment? That's another word that's thrown around a lot, but it's appropriate here. Am I living in alignment with my future self? In other words, are my basic structures in my life in alignment with where I want to be? And if not, then it's time to do some serious soul searching to determine whether it's time to say goodbye to certain things, whether it's time to close the book on something and open the book on something else. Those are bigger decisions that you need to make in response to this question. But the first thing is to reflect on what is it that I want. And then once I know what it is that I want, now I can look and say, okay, how am I going to get there? What's my 1-year plan? What's my 5-year plan? What's my 10-year plan to get what I want? And hopefully what you want is not something that is a precise destination, because then when you get there, now what? Are you done? You done with your journey of life? Is it time to cash the chips in? Chances are what you want is going to be something that is ever evolving, something that is going to continue to make you grow, continue to make you a better person. I can't tell you what it is. Only you can tell you what it is. But it's a pretty powerful question, pretty powerful thing to ponder. I know that for me, I want to make the world a better place. I want to be the best parent that I can. I want to raise children who are going to raise the next generation, who are going to raise the next generation in a way that every single generation is furthering the well-being of the human race and the planet, and our whatever our world is, solar system, galaxy, whatever. My mission statement here is to empower all people with wealth creation so that this and future generations can lead a better life. And even that, when I think about what I want, even that is just a small piece of what I really want. Now, does this bigger desire of wanting to be a driving force in the world and to be a force for positive change, does that mean that I don't have other desires? Like, I don't know, driving a fancy car? No, it doesn't. But I want to highlight that there's a difference between a desire for something that is transient, temporary, doesn't really do anything for you, versus situational. So, and this is a hard differentiation to make, because not everybody's going to want something like what I want. As a matter of fact, many people don't want those things. A lot of people want to live in a very peaceful existence, so maybe what you want is just to be stress-free as much as possible, or stress-free, 80-90% of the time. But it could be that what you want is those desires. It could be that for me, it's a less important materialistic thing, but for somebody else, it's a much more real destination in their life. So as I'm sharing this and as I'm saying it, I'm recognizing that I am not taking that away from you. I'm not belittling what you want. It's your destination. You get to choose it. But when you choose that destination, if it's something that is finite, if it's something that you can arrive and you will have achieved it, then I'm going to ask you to dig a little bit deeper and say, okay, then what? So if I get there, then what? If it's not something that is continuous, you got to ask yourself the question of then what? And once you figure out what it is that you want, then we can go into an exercise of goal setting, an exercise of defining, of an exercise of putting actual tangible results to desire, results to actions that will produce the end result that we want. Now, once we have the destination, now we could key in the coordinates, queue up the GPS, find the best route, try to avoid traffic, and try to have the straightest, smoothest course of action to get to that result. And ultimately, I have to do a whole separate podcast episode on taking action. But ultimately, this being defined is going to mean that you can be in that 5%. If you want to end up being that one person who's wealthy, or those 4 people who are financially secure, then you're going to have to figure out what is it that you want. And with that, I'm going to let you go, and I will see you on the next episode of the Profit with Law podcast. I hope that this was this is a deviation from the normal way of my episodes. So I hope that this was helpful for you, and let me know. Give me some feedback, and don't forget to leave a rating review for the show. If you're enjoying it, we really, really need those ratings and reviews in order to grow, and it doesn't take a whole lot of time. They actually used to be really difficult, but now you can do it right there on your podcast app in the at least on the iPhone in the App Store. In the podcast app. You can go right on the show, and if you look at the ratings and reviews, you'll see a little link that says write a review. So it's underneath where you can see the reviews. There's a little thing that says write a review with a little square with a pen in it. Click on that and just leave us a rating and a review. Greatly appreciate it if you could take your time to do that. And thank you so much for listening. And I will talk to you again soon. Take care. Have you been enjoying the show? We sure hope so. To make sure you never miss an episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button in your podcast player app. Next week, we will be back with more valuable resources and ideas on how to break the mold and take your law firm to the next level.